are listening to DC Comics Rush Hour, a podcast for DC Comics fans by a DC Comics fan. Good morning. Welcome to a new week. I think I'm up to week 11 now. Hey, I'm in double digits and one was on a 0. Okay, whatever. Anyway, it's Tuesday morning. Yeah, I missed Friday and Monday for various medical and technical and other type life stuff that comes up. Nothing big, bad, or anything else. So I think I promised a couple times to mention something that gives me the shivers, and I'm going to talk about it today. Dark Forces Metal number 3. I think that's the full official title. Anyway, I just usually say Metal is the title. I think is what most people do. Alright, so the obligatory spoiler warning, although I don't feel as much like saying it because if I ruin it for somebody, maybe they just won't buy it any because it's terrible and I want it to go away. But yeah, let me tell you what I really think. Yeah. Alright. So when Dark Forces, or when they first announced Metal was coming, back, I don't know, March, April, May, somewhere in that range, there really was no indication of what it was about. Somewhere in there, I think I read in some interview, it was like Scott Snyder's and such, their heavy metal concert or something like that. And I thought, okay, this must be some little weird crossover they're doing, very artsy, whatever, no big deal. And then you got to this, I think June, May, it might have been May or June, and they started giving details about it and discovered that it's about nth metal and its connection to lots of stuff in the DC universe and a huge crossover, but it was voluntary. Not every book had to cross over. Well, that part's good. Making a crossover like this, a crossover event, optional for each of the writers is the way to go. Unless you're doing a Crisis on Infinite Earths or something, unless you're doing something that is completely world-changing, you should make it mandatory, or you should make it voluntary, unless it's one of those. That way you don't interrupt anyone's story, and they can choose to cross over, be affected by, notice, or dive fully in, based on what makes sense for their book and their characters. Okay, so at that point, I was like, well, okay, let's see. The only part I wasn't sure about is the fact that it was Scott Snyder writing it. Now, I do not have the same reaction to his work that I have to, say, Grant Morrison. At this point in time, even though Grant Morrison in the past has written some fantastic stuff, at this point he's written enough consistently that I cannot stand. That when I hear Grant Morrison is on a book, I immediately know I will not be buying it. It's just not for me. Just the way it is. With Scott Snyder, when he first started with Batman, and you got Court of Owls and such, really enjoyed it. Enjoyed that era at the beginning. And then over time, you had the deaths of the family, and let's see, what was, I guess there were two different Court of Owl stories, and Death of the Family, and all that was fine. I did think what they did with the Joker there was bizarre, but okay, the stories were fine. Then you got to 0 Year. First, dumb title. I can get over a dumb title. I can't get over a dumb story. 0 Year was horrible Batman story. And that's when I stopped reading Snyder's Batman. Every so often I would flip through one to see if anything had changed. Nope, staying the same. And then there was the whole Rebirth deal and everything started over, and he moved on and was doing All-Star Batman. And the way it was described, I was intrigued a little bit, the setup. So I thought I'd give it a try. absolutely hated the first issue. Couldn't stand it. Like, okay, nothing's changed. Not a Scott Snyder fan anymore. Fine. Moving on. And here comes Metal. So I figured, at least, if it's going to be a big crossover affecting lots of stuff, I should at least get the prelude. They talked about the Forge coming out as the prelude to it. And I should at least get that and see what it's about. Even if I don't read the whole thing, I probably should know what's going on if I'm going to, understand and know everything else going on in the DC Universe. And if there are lots of crossovers and such, probably kind of wise to do that. And it didn't hurt to buy one issue. So I bought The Forge. And absolutely loved The Forge. It was not a Batman story. The Forge, it involved Batman, but it involved a lot of people. And was very intriguing, very cool. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Came out of it singing its praises. Discovered there was a second prelude coming. That was in, it's July. So the first one was in June, second one's in July. The casting. Obviously, we're metal themed here, forging, casting, and so on. Yeah, okay. So, read the casting. And the casting was more, alright, we need to explain a bunch of stuff to you, so this one's not going to be as good, but necessary. Fine, read it. There wasn't anything wrong with it. It wasn't great, but there wasn't anything wrong. It was exactly that. It was just lots of exposition. Lots of this is going on and that's going on, and these people are doing that. And here's why stuff. Okay. So I had one great issue, one explain everything issue, and then we're ready for the series to kick off. And I'm looking forward to it. This is how I feel. I'm looking forward to it. And I get issue 1. And issue 1 it seemed to be that the preludes never happened. It just starts somewhere completely separate, different, sometime later. I don't know. Felt very odd picking up Metal number 1. But once I got over the beginning, the story read okay. That was it. Just okay. Not good, not bad, just okay. So I figure, well, I guess if the series is just okay, but they're doing any major changes, I can live with that. I'll find out what all those changes are and so on. But I'm not going to get any of the crossovers, because at this point, it didn't sell them well enough that they announced a ton of crossovers. I really don't think when they first started this, they planned on all the crossovers that they were going to do. They might have had some hopes for them, but it's definitely a money grab for crossover left and right and up and down and back and forth. And it's ridiculous number of crossovers they have. And we get the main story, and that's it. That's where I was at. Then issue 2 came out. I go into it expecting okay, not expecting anything great. Because also, when your expectations are up, like they were with The Forge, I can see something, that is still good coming across as okay because your expectations are so high. Yeah, that wasn't the case. My expectations were now low. My expectations were, this will be okay, whatever. I read it, and issue number 2 was a Scott Snyder Batman story. Did not enjoy it at all. I understand there are people who like the Scott Snyder Batman stories, and for them, it was probably written well and done well, and I don't want to trash it, but it's not something I enjoy at all. So I wasn't sure I was going to get number 3 at all. And honestly, I forgot to have them take it off the list at the comic shop. And number 3 came out. By the time it's actually in my file, I don't feel good about putting something back that's in my file. Unless I didn't ask for it to be there. But if I asked for it to be there, I don't feel good about doing that. So I went ahead and bought number 3. Now my expectations are really, really low. It'd be hard to get much lower. Well, you might be wrong about that. Let's see if I can do the Impractical Jokers. Well, yeah, that didn't work. Anyway, number 3 was probably the biggest piece of garbage that I have purchased and read in ages. The only thing that's similar or comes close was the new Secret Wars number 1. When I read that, I discovered the problem with it was you were reading kind of the culmination of, his name was Hickman, I don't know, whoever the writer was, like years of his stories all culminating in this. And so if you had not read those years of stories, you were completely lost. You were reading the last chapter of a big book, a big complicated book, and I'm going to say not well written book, but at least all the rest is definitely true. That's not exactly how this felt, but how much of garbage it felt was similar. In fact, this is probably worse. You do not have to have read anything that came before it, but at the same time, the retconning that's going on left and right. Alright, so a retcon is retroactively putting something in the continuity like it's always been there. Some writers can be really good at that. Alan Moore, I think, is the absolute best at that, if for no other reason, just based on what he did with Swamp Thing. He did a retcon on Swamp Thing with issue number 21 of Saga of the Swamp Thing that is, I think, probably the best retcon of all time, because it does not come across as a retcon. It comes across as an organic revelation of details in the story. Everything in Metal number 3 that's important to the story seems to be, oh yeah, but it's always been like that. Whether it's Steel's hammer being made of nth metal, or Dr. Fate's helmet being made of nth metal, or the Plastic Man egg. Really? But anyway, the Plastic Man egg being nth metal related. That last one, really, whatever. But so you got all of that. You've got Clark and Diana and Bruce that have a secret code that they've always had from when they first started working together, to where if they gave their code, so Clark would give a code of like BD for Bruce Diana, and Diana would give one for CB, Clark Bruce, or whatever. I don't remember the exact letters, I know those are the letters, I don't remember the exact order. And the order becomes important. He was very unsuccessful in the retcon attempts, is my feeling. And without those, it does fall apart. And the logic in the story doesn't even work. So you start with a dream sequence, which you're not 100% sure it's a dream sequence at first. If you were to say this happens immediately after the events of number 2, then you'd say, yeah, okay, it is. But with the way he's jumped around, who knows when it is. So it's Bruce, Clark, Lois, Diana, Tim and Damien, all on a hillside having a picnic. Fine, alright. And Bruce is happy. That should be our clue probably right there, that there's something wrong. And then, boom, they snap out of it. And in snapping out of it, turns out Wonder Woman had wrapped her magic lasso around Superman's arms and was telling him to wake up, that he was in a trance, that for a week they had been fighting the bad guys in this trance, trying to come out of it. Okay, so I'm going to skip to the end. I said spoiler warning. At the end, it turns out the entire plot was a trick by the bad guy to get Superman to go to the Dark Universe. Now, I will come back to the Dark Universe in a minute. There's something really cool there, okay? I'll give him that. But, continuing on with this, the whole plot was to get Superman tricked into coming to the Dark Universe. Except for a week, they had him in a trance. Why didn't they just take him there? I mean, really, seriously. Why not just take him there if he's been in that trance for an entire week? But no, they got to go through a huge convoluted plot and an argument in the middle that doesn't make sense that they'd be having, and then a couple, at least one, if not two, unnecessary deaths. Nightmaster, I believe it is, or Nightshade, he's the barkeep, and I'm hoping Detective Chimp is not dead. Since they didn't really necessarily show a body, they showed a fire but didn't show a body, we can just pretend that never happened, and Detective Chimp is okay. So, Clark goes to the underworld, and even there, in order to get there, he needs Flash and Steel to help him. So he takes them to the Fortress of Solitude and shows them the Anti-Monitor's big tuning fork thing. And Bruce has been using it to study the Dark Universe. Okay, that's fine. Weird, but fine. We'd seen it earlier. In fact, I think that's one of the things we saw in the Forge. It was kind of one of those, cool, what are they doing with that? You know, it was one of those cool moments. I think that's why the Forge is so cool. It teased a lot of stuff, but didn't pay off what Scott Snyder wanted to pay off. It's the payoffs that are bad. The teases were fine. But anyway, so he needs them because he figures that by turning it on in Flash, zipping around it really fast with him, and then funneling all that through Steel's nth metal, they'll open a door to the Dark Universe. Sure. Right. Because that's something Superman would just inherently know and think of and such, but okay. Fine. He did. There you are. If you remember from a few moments ago when I said it, the only thing that's nth metal with Steel is his hammer, according to what they had said. So why does Steel have to be strapped to the big tuning fork and go through all the pain and everything else instead of just strapping his hammer there? Just nothing about this story makes sense. Nothing at all. But there we are. That's metal number 3. I'm at work and I'm really tired of talking about it, so I'm going to stop now. I advise anyone who listens to this to not buy metal. Just go with Doomsday Clock only. And I'm assuming it's going to be good. If it turns out to be bad, I'll say so. But skip metal. Don't give DC any money around metal. So that said, this has been DC Comics Rush Hour. I'm John Paul from the Old Titans. Long live the Legion.